Hello there, my name is Leo and thank you very much for tuning in. This is the making of or CGI breakdown, however you would like to call it, of my dynamic machines render that you have seen on this channel. If you haven't seen it, there's a chance that it should either be up in this corner or whatever. There should be an eye that you can click on to have a look at it. The dynamic machines challenge, just to describe it, what the hell is going on about that. The Dynamic Machines Challenge is a challenge by Clinton Jones. He was with the Corridor crew beforehand when he decided to do his own business or his own thing. And he launched 2 challenges up until now. What you're seeing on the screen is the Alternate Realities Challenge that he has posted some weeks ago, some months. And now he challenged the people to a second challenge, and that was the Dynamic Machines Challenge, where my render was created for. The Dynamic Machines Challenge was basically a challenge to create a Rube Goldberg contraption. That means that you basically take, in this specific case, this square piece of something, this, let's say, kind of elevator thing, and let it move from the bottom to the top, and then there's a ball in it that should be guided through it from the top to bottom. And if you combine all of those things, you would have this kind of seamless, never-ending machine of awesome renders with a ball in it, which is the point where I'm gonna start to talk about my project. Whenever I do anything in 3D that takes a good amount of time, I storyboard beforehand. You will now see the storyboard on the screen itself. I'm gonna have a look at my book. Yes, I actually use a book for my storyboarding because it's just a little bit more convenient to use. As you can see, I have made a raw sketch for my render. The thing is, just for the record, I'm a bit weird. Yeah, that's just like it is. And also I'm a horror fan, so I knew that I wanted to do something disgustingly horror styly, something with blood, guts and gore. So I created this kind of butcher contraption. I do not know how to properly call it. My file is actually just named Dynamic Challenge Entry. I don't know how to call it, but I just thought of something like a fridge, a refrigerator, whatever, where a butcher puts all his victims' intestines and some gross stuff, just some gross stuff put into it. And from a pretty early standpoint, I already knew, okay, I need a chainsaw. Because what I wanted to include in my render was a little bit of storytelling. Something that was not just this lovely Rube Goldberg contraption, but also something that told a story, so that you had a look at my render and you could, read a story. So without further ado, let's jump into the Blender file itself. Let's have a look at the file itself. I'm gonna disable the graphical user interface so we see a little bit more. This is the original blend file. Let's go into the camera motion. Let's play it. It will suck at playing it because there's just too much going on, but this is the file. Yeah, everything's lagging a little bit too much. I wanted to show you the animation itself, but I think there's an easier way of breaking things like this down. Because the first thing that I would like to show you is how I created the motion of the ball itself. That's actually pretty damn simple. There's a system called rigid bodies in CGI that you can use to apply simple physical interactions with objects. I have a simple setup scene on this one where everything is set up to be a rigid body, whereas the ball itself is the only active part, and then you just play it and he will apply the correct physical thing to it, so it will fall like you expect it to be. This is very fast, this is not very hard, so as you can see, everything's working fine. So this was not a big challenge. It was, however, I am not sure why, but it was a pain in the ass to work on that. In the final render, the ball is stopped on those jars with some bloody intestines or whatever in it, and then pushed by the chainsaw to the other side of the room. And I do not know why, but I had a lot of trouble guiding the ball through it, because it seems like the rigid body system in Blender is not as accurate as I would love it to be. Even though I, for example, just changed the weight of the ball, things behaved in a much different way. Obviously, if I change for example, the weight, the size and so on and so forth, obviously things will change. That is what I expect. But whenever I did that, I just changed things in a very incremental way. So it was almost impossible for Blender to create an entirely different output. And yet some of my simulations, I can't show you anything of that because that was work in progress. Some simulations, some rigid body simulations looked vastly different even though I just changed incremental things. That was weird. That was just weird. That is just something that I would like to say for the record. But apart from that, that was a somewhat straightforward thing. Even though it was a pain in the ass. But the rigid body simulation itself, as you can see, that's quite simple. The second thing that I would like to talk about is the fluid simulation. Actually, to be fair, there's not that much to it. It was a simple fluid simulation. In this specific case, yeah, this doesn't look that great, but Blender has with MentaFlow a pretty cool system to simulate fluids. There's basically an object which is the emitter. You can change some settings to tell him that he should, for example, that's the x-axis, let's go for the x-axis, that he has some initial velocity. It is the object that the fluid is emerging from, and then you can set up things like the resolution of the fluid itself. I tried to keep that as low as possible. I think the final render was at roughly 182. This doesn't look very good, but as you can see, it is just a very simple fluid simulation. And this is how I achieved the blood in the animation itself. The last thing that I would like to talk about in this making of and this CGI breakdown is how I achieved the look of the colon. It looks so disgusting. I really think I nailed that one, because let's go for the rendered view. The material on this one, it looks disgusting, man. It just looks disgusting. I really nailed that, and I want to talk a little bit about that. This is just a curve. Actually, let's isolate that so you can properly see that. It is just a curve that I created. It's a spline. I chose how it would look like, and then I used an array on that with the geometry. The lovely thing about this is that the array is set to fit curve. So in this specific case, let's select the curve again. If I, for example, would like to change anything, then it would, on the one hand, automatically update everything, and on the other hand, it would always make it fit. This is just the one thing of the column that is, it actually looks really bad if you don't use the array. Interesting. This is the one object that is followed along the curve, repeated all of the time. This is very handy. I'm starting to feel like my English is breaking. I'm Germany, obviously. I'm Germany. Yeah, I'm Germany. I'm German, obviously, so bear with me and my bad English. But before we are coming to the conclusion of this video, I would like to have a last look at the cast modifier, or to be exact, this rounding of the column, because I really think it just looks great. And it is so easily achieved. The column itself, it has this cast modifier applied to it. The cast modifier has, in this specific case, this empty set as the cast object, and it works in a way that it just, as you can see, it pushes away the geometry from the empty. And that's basically, there's a chance that this is an inaccurate description how the cast modifier is working, but it does exactly this in this specific case. As you can see, it just looks great. I parented this empty to the rolling ball in it to achieve this look, and it just looked wonderful. I will keep in mind this cast modifier. I didn't knew about that before, but as you can see, you can also simulate something pressing into something. Let's just say you do not want to make a cloth physics simulation or anything like that. Like, there are certainly a lot of things that I can see this getting very useful for. I will keep that in mind. So this is my secret tip. The best thing about the one thing that if you are watching this you should take away, the cast modifier can be hilariously useful. Well, it's one of those modifiers which I barely used in Blender. I'm really curious if I will see my contraption in the final render at all, or if I would maybe get, let's say, excluded from it because of its severity, because it's fucked up. I know that is fucked up. It looks gory, it looks disgusting. I could accept my work not being in the final render and not being judged at all. We'll see about that. I actually do not know that. As of right now, it's the 7th of August. As of right now, I do not know if my render actually made it into the final thing. I will, however, after I do the recording on this one, have a look at it and tell you guys about it. Maybe I can film some really cool reactions from the people judging it. I don't know, we'll see about that. But up until that, I hope that you kinda enjoyed this breakdown, and now we will see if my piece actually made it into the final video.